Thank you so much for being part of the Integrated Awakening Conference.
Yes, it's so nice to be here. Can everyone see me and hear me fine?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, good. So it's a big welcome from my heart to yours, to all the new faces in the room. And I'd like to start today off with a bold statement. That's quite an introduction there, and so let's continue with the boldness here. And so I'm going to invite you to close your eyes and just feel this as I speak it. The holy grail of enlightenment is hidden in the darkest aspect of yourself. The holy grail of enlightenment is hidden in the darkest aspect of self. And so I'm going to invite you to feel into your heart, feel into your hara. And you may discover some warm, gentle light there, especially if you've been on this weekend retreat. And I invite you to let go into that warm, innocent light. Just feel your innate goodness. Feel and experience the quiet, innocent presence of your own divinity. And I'm going to invite you to feel deep in the body. So the center of the chest and inward toward the spine. Can you feel and experience this warmth, this aliveness, this divinity? I want to invite you to take a deep, full breath and feel a little deeper down into your belly, your hara. And again, going inward toward the spine, feeling a quiet strength and power. And so we're just inviting the truth of us to come forward. A gentle way, a meditative way, acknowledging what's here. And then in a humble way, you stay with your experience. And I'm going to invite you just to ask yourself, is it easy for me to come into my heart? Is it easy to find the strength of the Buddha nature, deep in my heart? Is this easy for me? Do I feel awake and completely, utterly enlightened? Or is there something veiling me? Is there a darkness here? Is there heaviness here? Is there a wound here? Is there struggle here? Is there tension, fight? Is there a part of me that's just trying to go up into transcendence and wish I didn't have a body and wish I didn't have a life? If there's any of that, I'm going to encourage you to come back to the body. Come back to your heart. And just notice what's here. From a place of compassion, from a place of humility, let the darkness speak to you. Let the pain, the confusion speak to you. Let any buried wound, heaviness, shadow speak to you. And let you know what's here. Show you clearly what's veiling you. So I invite you to be bold. I invite you to be courageous. I invite you to see perhaps what you don't want to see, or perhaps something that's just been hidden, buried, veiling. And in a soft way, a loving way, a Christ-like way, whatever that is that you see, whatever that is that's buried and that's coming forward, can you turn toward it? Can you breathe into it? Can you soften around it? In the most simple way, if there's tension here, we soften around tension. If our heart is shut down and filled with pain, we soften around that. We acknowledge that there is space here for this pain to unravel, for it to lift, for it to unwind. There's room here for things to empty out of us. Even if it's uncomfortable, even if it makes us feel a little bit ungrounded, there's room here. So again, feeling to the innocence of your heart, the quiet strength of your belly, feeling a sense of power that has outlived every pain, every struggle, every heartache you've ever had. There's something here that is awake, that is aware, that is vibrant and innocent, and has outlived the hell. What is that? What is that place within you? That has outlived. So we soften, we open, and we give ourselves permission to feel without turning away, to experience without turning away. Now, for some of you, this is going to require relaxing your throat chakra. And again, coming down into the belly, into the heart, feeling and opening to your human self. And saying, yes, I see you. I love you. And I care. Yes, I will not turn away from you. Yes, there is something good. There is something divine. There is something holy about this one, this being. So I'm going to invite you to continue to breathe and feel open and experience both the absolute innocent divinity of your heart, this quiet strength of the Hara, which in a Christ-like way has outlived every human experience you've ever had. So we open to this, and we also open to the veils, to the pain, the trauma, the heartache. In a Christ-like way, we open, we include, we embrace. We don't turn away. from all the crying children within us, the crying places within us. This is a path of love. This is a path of strength. This is a path of liberation. Liberation. And so if you like, you can open your eyes. I invite you to stay with your experience, feeling into your goodness, remembering that what you are is divine, what you are is holy. And we'll speak a little bit about this path. In the beginning of the path, I tried to meditate. Many, many hours a day, 5, 6, even more, sometimes 10 hours a day. Transcend. And I became quite good at it. Quite good. But then I would go out into the world and I discovered that I was disturbed by the sound of a dog barking, the sound of a big truck driving by, the sound of my partner, nagging at me or whatever it was. I was disturbed by what I saw in the news. I was disturbed by, people at Walmart, the fact that they were building a Walmart in my town. It just seemed like I was disturbed every which way. And I saw I had a choice. I could run away to India, and I tried that. What I found in India, when I went to Ramana Ashram, is that it's not very quiet there. It's loud, and there's barking dogs, and there's peacocks that make this very strange noise at 3:30 and 4:30 in the morning when I'm trying to meditate like a good little monk. There's honking cars right outside the ashram. Ever traveled to India, they use a horn like we use a turn signal here in the Western world. So there's always horns honking. The floor was concrete and uncomfortable. When I'd go outside to have a little snack, a little banana or something to eat, there were teams of monkeys that would work together, and they'd run up behind you, steal your banana out of your hand. And so it's a wild place. And I realized, this doesn't work. I cannot force the world to be quiet. I can't force my children, my family, my mother, my father to behave. And so then I began to look, well, what happens when I open up this conversation around compassion? I realized that there's a lot of things within me that I did not want to feel. There's a lot of things in this world that I did not want to face. And I think most spiritual people discover this somewhere on the path. That, we just want to get high, or we want to get awake, whatever that means, and get out of here. And sometimes we go on, big retreats and have a powerful experience. And we feel wondrous. Again, many of us are feeling wondrous this day from being on this retreat. But then what happens on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday? What happens when we get COVID, or when our daughter gets sick, our partner dies, or our little dog gets cancer? What happens? In those moments, are we awake? It's like, well, what does that mean? Do we just transcend our four-legged friend. We don't care that he has cancer. Like, what does it mean to be awake? And so this was a big question for me on the path of, I thought to be awake meant to be pain-free. And boy, that'd be great because then I'd be pain-free by now. But what I realized is to be awake means I'm free to experience life fully as it is. So I experience life fully as it is. The good, the bad, the ugly, the terrifying. And there's a funny thing, especially with the terrifying. When you turn towards that which terrifies you and you embrace it with utter love and you sit with the terror until it burns up, you realize a different type of freedom. Not the freedom of transcendence, but the freedom of embodiment. The freedom of embodiment. And my God, I wish, it was different. I wish we could just meditate for 10,000 hours. I can remember when I got to 10,000 hours. I was kind of clocking it in my head. And someone said, when you get to 10,000 hours, then you're a master of whatever it is you do. And I realized, I'm still afraid of life. I'm not really free. So free from life or free to live life. How about both? How about both? When you're free from life, normally that's a temporary thing. It has a shelf life, an expiration date before God makes you do the deeper work. The deeper work. And the way God sets up this path is the deeper work is in the darkness. It's not just a path we walk, further and further up the ladder to heaven, but rather we descend into hell. We descend into hell and see if we can discover a light in hell, a light that's greater than hell, a light that's beyond hell, a light that includes hell. And hell is a pretty harsh word. A different word I could use if I was a scientist is I would call it evolution. Evolution, because that's what's happening here on this planet. We're growing out of darkness into the light. And for most of us, that tends to be a hellish experience. We're growing out of an animal body and an animal mind and an animal, emotional nature. Like that's what goes on in cable news, an animal emotional nature, just arguing with each other. And most of us have been seduced by these different aspects of mind. Not only seduced, they've been programmed into our blood, into our body, into our nervous system. And so if we don't know how to face these aspects within us, these hell realms, and by hell realms, it can be deep, dark trauma and pain and suffering and the icky stuff that we've, stuffed forever. But a hell realm can also be the fact that most people have a powerful critic that's in their head, judging every single thing they say, attacking them. Like that's a hell realm. That's a hell realm. And so the question becomes if we want to truly be liberated, we have to liberate the hell realms. We have to liberate the critic within us. We have to liberate the prostitute within us. For those of you who don't know the prostitute, that's just a part of you that sells yourself short. It can be simply I prostituted myself through pleasing, just through being nice and not speaking my truth. And so we prostitute ourselves, we criticize ourselves, we judge, we attack ourselves. These are the hell realms I'm speaking about. And other people have attacked and criticized us. And so we have these traumas within us. And these traumas, any psychological trauma, any critic that you have in your head, these are what we call in the realm of yoga, the veils. These are what veil your awakened nature. And so if we are unprepared to face these veils, we'll never be free. It's going to be very difficult to be free if you don't speak kindly to yourself. Very difficult to be free if you can't look in the mirror or look on your computer screen right now and see your face and smile. And smile at your beauty, smile at your divinity. Say, oh yeah, look, there's God. There's God. Not in the form of Craig Holliday, but there's God in the form of me, whoever the me is. This is God. And for some people, I've always been amazed that some people, the hardest thing for them to do was not go into deep layers of trauma and abuse. The hardest thing for them to do is look in the mirror and smile at themselves. Boy, is that heartbreaking for me as a teacher to see people have to twist their arms to get them to look in the mirror and smile at their beauty. And I don't care if, they're 86 years old or 86 days old. When you look at yourself from the lens of your heart, there's beauty there. Radiant, awake beauty. The same beauty as the day you were born. The same awake, aware, innocent beauty. And you may get a glimpse of this right now in this moment. And then a moment later, you might notice there's a part of yourself that says, but I'm not good enough. But I'm bad, but I'm wrong. But I'm too big, too small. And so like I started today's teaching with, the holy grail of enlightenment is found in the darkest of dark places within you. The holy grail of enlightenment is discovered not in heaven, but when you face your inner critic and you see that she's just a broken little girl and she's suffering and she's struggling and she's been trying so hard to fix you so that you can be enlightened. She's actually on your team, but she's just a little bit confused. He's a little bit confused. He's got the world upside down and backwards. And when you're able to see the critic and your heart breaks and you meet them with love, this is how we liberate the veils. This is how we liberate the veils. And when there's no more veils, it's quite easy to be free. It's quite easy to live an awakened life when you don't have a psychology that's split into 12 different pieces, all fighting with each other. The lawyer and the scientist and the critic and the unworthy one and the abused one and the abandoned one and the forsaken one and the one who hates God and the one who loves God. It's like, if you want to know what it means to suffer, it means to be divided. To be divided. And for you to discover the holy grail of enlightenment, you have to discover the truth of non-division, the experience of non-division, which only comes through the utter embrace, the total embrace of heaven and hell. And, I can tell you, like when I was young, I had a strong bias towards embracing heaven. It's very easy for me to embrace heaven, extremely easy. I came from very high heaven world. And so I knew heaven, like it was when I was born as a young boy, I knew what heaven was. It was in my blood. I had a direct connection with God, with Christ. I knew heaven, and it was easy to talk to God, to speak to God, to call on angels, to open to absolute experiences. Even as a young kid, it was easy. But what was hard was to face my Father. That's what was hard. What was hard was for me to say no to someone. To say no. I always said yes. Whatever they asked me to do, I just said yes. Even if it wasn't my truth, even if it put me last, even if it hurt me or harmed me, I just agreed. What was hard was for me to be seen. I was terrified of being seen. But if I was seen, I would be hit. I'd be hit. Because I came from a childhood where you're told to be quiet. Don't be seen, just work. Just work. Don't make any noises, just work. And so it was hard for me to stand in the truth, to live the truth. And so when I first stepped on the path in a conscious way, like with my teacher at age 18 or 19, very easy for me to open to heaven, open to the absolute. When he said, he always had me building something. So I'd go to the lumber yard and, pick up all the wood and the materials, and they'd fill my truck with 2x4s that were crooked. And I knew they were no good, like the crooked 2x4s aren't what you want to build a house with, or a temple or a wall, anything. And when I faced my teacher, he said, "Why did you take these?" And I'd say, "Well, I don't know. It's because I wanted to please the people at the lumber yard." And then I got to see my teacher. I knew he would be disappointed. So I wanted to please him. So then I would, take the boards back and try to find a way to return the boards without anyone seeing, and swapping them out. And, that's the prostituting. That's the sneaking. That's the manipulating. In all these stupid little ways, or these immature little ways that human beings act, that we all play these games. These are what veil our truth. These are what veil our Christ-like nature. Not many of us are going to be, murderers or killers or do horrific acts. It's little manipulations, little fights that we get in with people. We argue with people online. We attack them online. We attack ourselves offline. All these little places that veil us. And the great question for each of us is, am I willing to sit in the darkness? Am I willing to descend into the different hell realms within my own self and respond with love, respond with innocence, not with dogma? That's a mistake many people make, is they respond with dogma. It's all an illusion. It's just a story. That's the dogma part. Okay, well, if it's just a story, it's just an illusion. Why does it come back every single day? Why does it come back? There must be something more to it than just seeing it as a story. What's underneath the story? What's at the root of the story? If you truly want a story to dissolve, you can't just see it. You have to meet the root of it with love and strength. So the love is the willingness to embrace. The strength is the willingness to do it again and again and again until it dissolves, till it actually dissolves. we want to experience, this thing called no self, we have to sit with the self again and again and again with deep love, deep resolve, holding its hand, helping it to grow up, helping it to mature, helping it to let go, helping it to surrender. And after the surrender, you'll see, oh, there's no more critic there. Oh, I feel empty of that aspect of self. It's great freedom when we no longer have a critic or a judge within our consciousness. There's great freedom when we no longer have a prostitute within us. There's great freedom when we no longer have a political nature that's attacking life eternally, telling it how it's wrong, unless it's left or unless it's right. Like, that's not the truth. CNN is not the truth. Fox is not the truth. Cable news is not the truth. It's not the truth. It's not the truth that we hate each other. It's not the truth that we're all dying. Truth is, we are divine beings in a confused world. Truth is, we're drunk angels. Is what the truth is. Drunk angels, is one famous teacher once said. So anyways, I could go on and on here. And what I'd like to do is open it up for questions, and it'd be good if someone told me how much time we have, because sometimes I go into the timeless and I get a little bit confused. But one thing I'd like to share is there's that old story of Christ being baptized, and many of us in this group may have been baptized. And baptism in water, in a sense, is a purification. And for many of us, we come to the teachings of non-duality, in a sense, to purify our minds, just find some semblance of sanity within ourselves. And the beautiful thing about most non-dual teachings is they do a pretty good job of helping us to discover a sanity within us. And after people have begun to discover that sanity, that's when I like to work with them. And then we step into the second baptism. So first we have to clear out the mind and get a little taste of transcendence and clarity, to get a sense of, what this path is all about, what it means to be free, what it means to be sane, what it means to see clearly. So that's the first baptism. And then God tends to give us a baptism by grace and by fire. By grace and by fire. And most of us love a baptism by grace, because that's when the real fireworks happen. The heart is just blasted open. We fall in love with everyone and everything. We see beauty and divinity everywhere. And then there's the baptism by fire. Baptism by fire, that moves us into the realm of liberation. By fire, it means we must go to hell, descend into hell. We must face what's within us. We must face what's within this world. We must face the human condition. We must be, in a sense, tried and tested and thrown up on that cross. Thrown up on that cross. And this is normally where people go through the dark night of the soul and this and that. And the beautiful thing about trials and tribulations is they show you, they teach you experientially that what you are is indestructible. That what you are is a light that cannot be turned out, an innocence that cannot be defiled. Your ego can be hurt, broken, abused, but your innocence, your purity can never be defiled. And that's what we discover on the cross. That's what we discover when we carry the cross. That's what we discover when we're baptized in fire. And listen, I didn't make the rules to this world. I didn't make the direction of the path. I would have made it a lot different. I would have made it so you meditate your way to heaven, because that's pretty easy. Well, God choose to teach us a different way. We're baptized in water, baptized in grace, baptized in fire. Most people, when they get to the fire, they realize, oh, there is actually an ego here, a big fat ego that's really resisting and struggling and fighting and doing anything it can to resist and try to get the heck out of here. If I could just be enlightened, then I wouldn't feel this. No, you will be enlightened when you give yourself permission to feel all this. That's how it works. The ego thinks if I just get enlightened, then I won't have to feel any of this stuff. It's actually the opposite. When you choose to open and feel and experience life totally, the good, the bad, the ugly, the brilliant, and the hell, without turning away, only then are we free. Only then are we free. Okay. So someone help me out here.
So we have 45 minutes remaining. And Aidan has his hand raised if you would like to talk to Aidan.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Please.
Would you like to
Hi, Craig.
Hello,
I
is it Aidan?
It's Aidan in Ireland. Nice to talk to you.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say thank you. That was extremely helpful and apt for my time right now, because I've had a similar journey of a lot of light and a lot of practice.
Yes.
And I've now in a kind of a hell realm, really, with health and pain and sickness. And what I was trying to do was put the light into that, and nearly expect a lot of myself and how I dealt with something that's very hard to deal with. And I find that a lot of people I know put that sort of pressure on them, So we come with a lot of knowledge and a lot of practices and breath work, and we know a lot about chakras and how it should work. And then we meet something where none of that works anymore. It just doesn't work,
Yes.
Yes.
And
I remember a teacher of yours at Ashanti saying something about being in pain in the hospital, and just his phrase was, all his strategies fell away. And that's how I feel at the moment. None of my tricks are working, and I don't like it, because I had a lot of tricks. I had a lot of tools, I knew how to do a lot of things. People came to me for advice, and now I have no idea how, like, God is in control of this one. And I nearly died during the summer from an infection. And what I wanted to happen was have a lovely write a book on a near-death experience. That wasn't at all what it was like. It was just terribly painful, and went on a lot longer than I would have liked. So what you've said to me right now was really, really helpful. And just the image of Christ, even a guy like him struggled with the pain and with everything else, and it wasn't all rosy in the garden. And that message to me right now is just so helpful to where I am, and not even looking for a way out, because that's the problem, looking for a way out.
Yeah.
And I know I've heard you talk about your own experiences with your own back pain and stuff, and how difficult it is. I don't know any easy way to go through stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about this. And so, it's an interesting thing when God exhausts us.
Mm.
when life exhausts us, when life beats us down,
Mm-hmm.
and we no longer have any practices, any strategies, or there's nothing really that we can do. And that's an interesting moment, because, you know, for many egos in that moment, it tends to go into like almost a vortex of despair
Mm-hmm.
in that moment. And that's human. But a great question is can we be awake in that moment? What does it mean to be awake in that moment? And what's here right now in the hell? Like, what is it that's here in the hell, witnessing the hell, experiencing the hell? Can this thing be destroyed? Can this thing that's experiencing hell, can it be destroyed? And that's a wonderful question that I invite everyone to sit with. Now, I sat with this question a couple months ago. I got COVID. My whole family got it, and wife and kids had zero symptoms, and me, I was just about dead, just not too long ago, and I'm still on the road to recovery. And
the spiritual guy gets it the worst. Huh?
it was interesting. I was the most healthy one in the family too, and the kids are healthy, but it is an interesting thing to be on the deathbed and to say yes to that.
Yeah.
To say yes. And it's an interesting thing. Like the mind may scream no, and the nerves may scream no. And listen, that's human. And I want everyone to hear that. So it's human that, if I study jujitsu. So if I come there and I choke you, for you to go, ow, that hurts, like stop.
Yeah,
that's human.
Absolutely.
That's what your nervous system should do. Should do. And to even give ourselves permission not to fight with the nervous system. And to see, is there something here beyond the nervous system? Is there something here beyond the broken emotional nature? And what is that? Like, what is that heart of innocence? What is that? I can hear it in your voice, Aiden, just this quiet, innocent purity that outlived that experience. So what is that? Like, what is that? And my question for everyone is can we fall in love with this? Can we fall in love with that which does not die? The problem with having an ego is it listens to the loudest voices in our body, which if we're in pain, that's the central nervous system. It's just like screaming in your head, then your spine and your back, and just maybe aches and pains throughout the body. So there's that scream there, and that's normal to listen to. You should listen to that. If you're in a great deal of pain, and of course, you should try to do anything you can to heal.
Absolutely.
So nothing wrong with that.
I think
go ahead.
Just my background is in martial arts and healing, and I think I think a lot of people, it's a struggle I see with people now who have done a lot of healing and know a lot about healing. This kind of when they reach what they can't do anymore, it's like it's beyond your control. And like I would do everything possible. I would get acupuncture. I would try herbs, medicines, you name it, whatever will help, I will take. But the healer part of me, the guy who does the healing, now has to go away. Like he's unemployed now. I find that it's quite difficult to be that helpless.
He's unemployed, and so that's interesting, because what that points out, and everyone does this game, is the identification with the spiritual superego. So whether we call him the healer, the meditator, whatever it is.
Absolutely.
And so if we identify with him or her, them, we will suffer. And this is a common mistake. I should say everyone makes this mistake. They identify with the meditator. They identify with the spiritual superego. And when you're hung on a cross, the spiritual superego is given an opportunity to bleed out.
To bleed out.
To bleed out, literally, to bleed out. And when they do, when he does, when she does, when they do,
Okay.
when that one bleeds out, what you'll find is this supreme quietude. A supreme quietude. A supreme quietude. And it's here right now.
Yes.
But for us to really recognize it, oftentimes we have to bleed out first. And again, I wish that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
But that's just kind of how, how God designs it, is we have to bleed out. And it's funny for me because I'm surrounded by healers and people want to help. And even I was just staying with my mother because she's at a lower altitude, so I could get some air in my lungs.
Yes.
But when I was staying with her, and she's a healer, and she's actually a very powerful healer, you know, she would get frustrated with me for not healing as quickly.
Yes, I know that one very well.
And so, you know, it's like we project onto each other, we attack each other. And for me, you know, I'm very comfortable with chronic illness and debilitating pain, which is
I can hear that in you. That's why it's so refreshing, because it's that superego again of healing and judgment, which I take in internally. You know, it's like, I wonder why he's not healing. He must be a real idiot. You know, he must have done something terrible in a past life. And I'm sure I did lots of things terrible in past lives. You know, I didn't. But I used them all up. You know.
Yeah, but come on, like the part of us that says he must be a real idiot. So it's the willingness to turn to him.
Exactly.
And meet him with love.
Yeah.
Meet him with love. And even thank him. Like, thank you so much for trying all these things and studying this and studying that and taking me to accurate. Like, thank you. Thank you. Truly. Thank you. Thanking him. So we honor him, and we also let him exhaust himself. And the beautiful thing is, eventually, in the same way, like, you know, human beings in Western society, they work till they're 65, you know, 67, 70, maybe. They get exhausted with their work. And then at some point, they spend 6 months surrendering into retirement. And then they realize, oh, this is so much easier. This is so much easier. So spiritual liberation is very similar to retirement, where these different aspects of self that have worked so hard our whole life, where they realize, hey, you can go on vacation. Like, you don't have to work so hard. You don't have to fix. You don't have to try. You don't have to, you know, do this and that. It's okay to do nothing. It's okay to do nothing. It's okay to open and trust. It's okay to feel and experience this pain. It's okay to do the opposite of healing and fixing, and to say yes to what's here. Yes to what's here. And this is something that you can't, it's not top down. Again, that's a mistake people make, is they do top down instead of, you know, this type of awakening happens in the hara, where, excuse my language, it's kind of just like, fuck, I've failed miserably.
I'm glad you cursed before me.
I can't.
I was going to say it at some stage.
Yeah, it's like that. It's just like, fuck, like I can't figure. There's nothing I can do. And, you know, that's why the image of Christ on the cross, or even Christ carrying the cross, where he just falls on his knees. It's like, damn, I can barely get up. The guy's whipping me. You know, it's like I can barely get up. But then something within him does. And it's not a force of will. It's not his egoic nature. Yeah. It's just this quiet humility that goes forward to God. Goes forward to God. And it comes from deep, deep within, not from the spiritual superego. And so, you know, I don't like to create wars with these different aspects of self. I like, you know, I teach in a way that I say, all the aspects of self, all the aspects of ego. Ego is not bad. We love the ego to death. Yeah. When you love it fully and completely, it becomes very quiet. Yes. Very quiet. Very quiet. We fight with it. It becomes very loud, and you'll fight forever. Well, Aiden, good to be with you today. Thanks
Thank you,
for speaking up.
Greg.
I wish I could see your
I
beautiful
was
face
trying to
here.
turn the video on and it just won't turn on. I pressed the button many, many times, but
Yeah,
thank
yeah,
you. Lovely to connect to you, and
yeah,
God bless
yeah,
you.
yeah.
Thank you.
Same to you, my friend.
God
Yeah,
bless. Bye bye.
beautiful. Bye.
Thank you,
Okay.
Aidan.
Yeah, here's something in the chat I'll just read before we get to the next one. From Nancy, I started healing when I was about 8 years old. I healed animals, spent most of my life helping people and helping myself heal, identify with that identity. I moved to another state where it's difficult to do any of the healing because of the loss I have suffered the last 3 years. It may be time to let that persona bleed out. And I'll say this, Nancy. So we want to let it bleed out, but we also want to honor that there's something just quite innocent at the root of it. There's something quite innocent that wants to help, that wants to be a service. And so that part of you keep. But what you find is that part of you, it'll feel like God is using that aspect of you and working through you, living through you, instead of you doing it, instead of you being that person, instead of you identifying with being the, crystal chakra, Jinshin master, Reiki level 15 master healer. You'll find like that kind of identity falls away. That's the part that needs to bleed out. The doer, the pusher, that bleeds out. But what you find is this different part of you will start to come online where you'll feel you loving you and you loving life, and just a natural care and compassion that flows into life without any identification. And then God works through us instead of us, forcing or pushing or needing to be seen in that way, or, any of that silliness. So thanks for sharing. Okay. Who's the next question from?
Thank you. Colleen has her hand up. Colleen, if you're able to switch on your video. Yeah, you did. Good.
I don't know if you can see me or not.
Well, we can see a very kind of radiant light behind you, which looks very beautiful.
Oh, there I am.
Oh, there you go.
Hi, Craig.
Yeah, hi, Colleen.
I'm out in the desert, and it's like so perfect to hear your voice at the same time that I'm looking up at the Indian Canyons here in Palm Springs.
Yes.
It's amazing. Craig, I'm never going to be able to thank you enough, because you were at the beginning of my fire. And I'm so grateful for you.
Yes.
I am so grateful for you.
Yes.
Just taking that stand to forgive myself was the first step that really changed everything. To forgive myself completely.
Yes.
And I didn't really have a choice. As we're talking about, this whole thing was just cleared out.
Yes.
My whole life. And I've come to full circle with this. And it's so interesting that Helen is on this conference with you, because I started listening to her too. And she's the scientist and you're like the heart. You two are both like up there, like working with each other, with me. Because I started to say, okay, I am that. And when I started to say that, then it became full circle, because of you already knew it was human. And so now it's this, so, the bottom line is that I am not the doer. That's all there is. I am just not in charge,
Yeah.
I thought I was going to have I'm awake
We're
now.
losing your audio, Colleen.
It was just like, oh, okay. Me?
I'm not sure.
Are you losing
could you
me?
hear? Yes, we were.
Okay. Well,
Could you
I'm
hear
probably
that,
going to
Craig?
die. I might be dying out because I'm in a place that doesn't. Can you hear me now? Hello?
Yeah, it's patchy.
Okay.
I
Well,
don't
I
know
just
if
want
Craig
to
can
say
hear
I love you,
sufficiently.
Craig. I'm so glad you didn't die of COVID. I didn't know about that.
Yes. Yes. Well, thank you, Colleen. It's nice to have you. It's
Yeah.
nice to have you. And Colleen brought up a real beautiful truth, just the truth of forgiveness. You know, the death of the critic often comes through the willingness to forgive oneself and to forgive others. And, you know, for many of us, that's part of this work, is forgiving our own self for being human, like forgiving our humanity. And I like to remind people that you got your humanity from God. So, you know, people beg forgiveness from God. It's like God created this whole situation to begin with. So if you want someone to blame God. Don't blame yourself. If you want to wake up, you have to forgive yourself for being human and having a humanity. It was given to us. So anyways, thanks, Colleen. Good to have you here.
Thank you, Craig.
Yeah. All right. Well, who's next? Any other questions or anything anyone wants to share? And I'll look, the chat looks like it got pretty busy. Take a peek there. Okay, here, let's see. Someone writes, Craig, it's funny when we push up against life, then all our spiritual tools get lost. Then it comes to surrender and trusting. For me, it takes several rounds of fighting with whatever it takes before I can actually surrender. Yeah, I think this is how it is for most of us. And, you know, part of this forgiveness that we were speaking about is, again, forgiving yourself for being human. And as human beings, many of us, we need to fight for a period of time. We need to argue. We need to kind of burn that part of ourself out. You know, I've often told the story of, you know, I came into the world and I didn't have much of a voice. And so, you know, in order for me to open up, I had to open up to feeling the truth, getting prepared to speak my truth. I had to give myself permission to be angry, you know, for letting other people dominate me and all that type of thing. And so, you know, we have to give ourselves permission to go through just the normal developmental journey of being human. And that's messy. That's messy for most of us. And the problem with the messiness of the human self is most people, they spin in the mess. And so it's important that you hold on to, that you're anchored into some level of knowing, some level of seeing, some level of being when you're walking through the mess of life. This is why I'm a fan of daily spiritual practice, meditation retreats, because it helps us to get more fully anchored within our divinity. And so all this work that I'm speaking about going into hell and this and that, in order to go into hell, you have to first be connected to some aspect of your divinity. If not, you just get swallowed up and spit back out. And sometimes a decade goes by and you wonder, what just happened? What just happened? So anyways, are there any other hands or people who want to speak or ask or share?
Elaine, would you like to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Hi, yeah, thank you. And hello, Craig.
Hi, Elaine.
Really loving being with you and everyone. It's one thing I would like you, if you would please, to speak a little bit more to is you talked about you said something beautiful, which was the holy grail of enlightenment. Something I can't remember exactly. It was in the dark corners. It's in the depths. It's in the it's in the messy places.
Yes.
And I too have done, I've done a lot of meditation. I've like, I was like, oh yeah, I can do the meditation and all that kind of, but then recognize that, oh, but all this stuff comes up in life, and recognizing, as you also said so beautifully, like the crying children inside of me, and getting much better at sitting with them. One of the things that comes up for me is a resistance sometimes, to sit with them. I'm becoming much more aware of my how my mind will come up with, like, I'll be sitting with it and I'll be feeling it, and then I'll think about the washing that needs to go on, or maybe I just need to stop this a minute because there's something else I need to do. So I think I'm not really explaining myself very well. When I sit with the difficult feelings that come up, do I need to name them, or understand them, or know where they're coming from, or do they need to have a story around them, or can I just let them be feelings?
Yeah, that's a great question. Okay, so it depends. And so, say for example, like you were a little girl and there was one moment in history where you experienced this great pain, maybe of being bullied or being ignored or being rejected. And if that place is within you, and you sit and you open up and you start to feel an ache there, and the ache comes with a story, if it comes with that old memory, then I encourage you to see it. I mean, normally what happens is when we sit, and the basic teachings, we sit, we breathe, we feel, we open, and we experience. And so if the experience includes a memory, we let it come. We let it come. If it includes, I don't like the word story because people have used it in the non-dual teachings in such a negative way. Like if we look at when we're doing healing work, or we're just opening, or clearing the veils, facing what's within us, there's going to be memories that come forward, and some are going to be really powerful. Like I was actually back again, like at my mother's house back in Ohio and Kentucky area where I grew up. And I was just laying in bed, and this old memory came forward. And it was a memory of when I was a little kid, and I was in the back seat of this van, and I was with like my cousins, and basically I'm going to say it, it's a silly story, but they taught me basically a dirty word that I'd never heard before. And it was a silly word. It was just like a word that didn't make any sense to me. I'm not going to say it, but so I started to say it, and I said it again and again, because I was like, this is a stupid word. Like, what does this word even mean? And I just kept saying it. And then all of a sudden, it's like my uncle was like, hey, like, what the hell's going on back there? Because here was Craig, this little boy who just first heard this word. I didn't know the word didn't make any sense to me. I was just such an innocent kid. It didn't compute with me. And the word I was saying was a vile word. And, so my uncle got really mad. And this is like 40 years later. I'm, laying in bed. And this little contraction, because if you can think, as being a little kid, and I was scared of my parents. I had like a military family, but I was scared of all adults as a little boy. So I was all afraid they were going to be like my father, tell me shut the hell up. And I was told, like, shut up, like, don't say that. That's bad. You're bad. Like, that's a bad thing to say. And so when we hear that, what happens in us is we contract. And so we tend to contract in the throat. We tend to contract in the heart. We tend to contract in the belly. These are the traditional places when we're rejected or told we're bad or we're wrong. And when we contract there, it veils our divinity, it veils our light, it veils our power, it veils our speech. And so then our light can't shine. It's hard for us to embody these truths. And so, like, I didn't even go into any story, but I just had the memory and I just felt it a little bit more fully because I wasn't able to at the time. I just knew I was bad. I needed to shut up. And this was, again, 40 years ago. I had carried this thing. And so I felt it and just something unraveled. And then just in a natural way, I feel a little bit lighter, a little bit more spacious in the hara. And so it's just working in this way. Now, where I tell people to be careful with the story, and this actually came up in your question, you don't need to have a story, you don't need to have an understanding. Most of the time when I sit in meditation, there'll be little things that will unravel. And I have no idea what they are. There's little tensions, pre-verbal, non-verbal. Maybe it's something like I was on an airplane till late last night coming home. And, there's just little tensions in the body of being human. You sit and you open to them, you don't turn away. But what most people do is they don't sit and turn to them. Like if I just stand up on the airplane and look like the, this person called on a stewardess, right? Yeah, stewardess. If I walk down the aisle, what I'll see is no one is feeling in their body. Everyone is grabbing this thing and just doing this. And so they're doing the opposite of feeling. They're doing the opposite of being with. And we're all having this great experience of now we have the internet and we can use the internet consciously to open and to be more fully with ourselves. Or we can use it just, the shadow side of transcendence, which is kind of space out in weird dopamine realms of Twitter or Instagram. And so before this thing was invented to distract us, we would have exactly what you had in your mind is you sit and you begin to open and feel. And then the inner doer, the taskmaster, I think that's the word. Yeah. The one who's given you all the jobs to do. The super ego say, hey, you should probably do the laundry and then do the dishes. And maybe we should do something over here. And if you look at that, like if you stop and do the exact same work that you're doing with what you were doing before, like the little child inside, if we do that same work with the one who's distracting us, like what's going on with her? Like the one who distracts. Like if you feel into her, what is her core emotion, the one who distracts? Like, do you know what it is? What do you feel there?
Fear.
Fear, yeah. And you see,
Yeah.
Oh, look, she's one of the children. She's one of the children.
Yeah.
She's one of the children. Oh, she's afraid. She's afraid. And so she plays a game with us. And her game is, it's a lot easier to do a load of laundry than it is to face fear. It's a lot easier to do a load of laundry than to face fear. And unfortunately, it's a lot easier to scroll on an iPhone than to face fear. And even like when we come to a teaching like this, sometimes they give us choices because I think I'm speaking and someone else is speaking. And so they give you a choice. And so it's like, Craig's talking about a little something. I get a little bored. I'm going to click, see what the other guy's saying, or the other gal saying. And it's like, oh, what was Craig saying? This? Can you stop? And can you open? Let's see what's going on over here. It's like, why? Like, why is that? Oh, because there's fear here. There's fear. And as you feel into the fear, it's like, well, what's that about? Like, what's the fear about? What am I afraid of? Am I afraid to feel, these old things within me, these new things within me? What am I afraid is going to happen when I stop? And like, keep in mind, like, for a lot of people, when you really stop, you might notice that the ground's falling out from under you. Like, literally. If we just experience that from the realm of ego, be like, oh my God, like, I have to stop that. I have to distract. When I distract, it doesn't feel like the ground's falling out from under me. But as you open into fear and you experience directly, the ground is falling out from under me. And you open to that again and again and again. You begin to discover what the Buddha taught, the Buddha called the groundless ground. The groundless ground. And as you begin to open more and get a little bit comfortable, you say, well, what is this ground falling out from under me? Oh, it's like this wonderful free fall through space where I feel thrilled to be alive. Thrilled to be alive. And see, this is Tantra, where you face fear and then all of a sudden you discover the groundless ground and you feel a thrillingness about being alive. And a thrillingness that's much greater than anything anyone could post on Instagram. You realize life is vibrant and exploding and like dying and exploding and imploding all at the same time. And so we have an ego that's trying to say, like, no, we're just doing the laundry and we're living a mundane life. And I'm this little person in this box and I'm safe. But when you really open, you realize, oh, like, I'm not safe. I am not safe. Like in an egoic way. Like everything is being born and being eaten and being destroyed and giving birth and changing and shifting. But it's amazing when you give into it, when you melt into it, when you don't turn away from it. You feel like you're on drugs all the time. It's like, oh my God, like everything is vivid and bright and radiant and, you know, otherworldly and completely ordinary and otherworldly. But the ego says, I can't handle, I cannot handle that. That is way too much. And that is absolutely true. It is way too much for your ego. But when you step back into this innocence and this purity and this goddess that you are, you realize, oh yeah, I can handle this. I am this. I am this. There's no handling of it. I am this. My nature is this. My nature is vibrant and radiant and explosively divine and evolutionary and exploding and imploding. And somehow in this, I cannot die. I cannot die. And then when you begin to discover, I cannot die, it's a funny thing to discover, I cannot die through walking through the doorway of fear. But if we don't walk through the doorway of fear, there's just a sense of like, don't touch that, busy yourself. Like, don't go there because it can get nutty. And I'm not going to say it won't get nutty. Like when you first start waking up, it gets really nutty. Really nutty. And anyone knows about my experience, it got really crazy, really nutty. But if there's the trust there, a trust, there's a desire to know the truth. If you are a little bit nutty in a good way, like most spiritual people are, you say, screw it. I'm just gonna go for it. I'm gonna see. Because this mundane life, it just doesn't do it for me. It just doesn't do it. It doesn't do it. Like the suburbs, it just doesn't do it. Big house, the white fence, just doesn't do it. Doesn't do it. What's behind the curtain? And the only way we discover what's behind the curtain is through walking through that threshold, facing fear, facing the fear, facing the panic. A lot of people experience it as panic. And I was just real crazy with God. You know, I had utter trust in God. And so when I started to feel like the panic of the disillusionment of the ego, I kind of said, okay, like bring it on. Let's see. Let's see what happens if I have a 4-hour panic attack. Like, let's see what happens. Oh, as I open to panic, I feel a lot lighter. I feel ridiculously spacious. I don't feel like there's any walls between me and life. But before a panic attack, most people feel like they're, you know, if you're on the verge of a panic attack, it feels like you're being smothered. As you open to being smothered, it feels like there's no walls. Oh, there's no walls. Oh, isn't that what oneness is? There's no walls. Yeah, no walls. And so you kind of have to give yourself permission to be a little bit nutty, a little bit, you know, to kind of just, maybe I'll try to go where I shouldn't go. Where I shouldn't go.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm
of
definitely
course.
a little bit nutty, and I thank you so much, because I've done the panic attacks and been with them, and they've gone on for a long time, and then had these amazing experiences.
Yeah.
And then I thought, oh, well, that's that done.
Yeah.
But then something else comes up. So thank you. That's been really helpful. And also, I just wanted to say that I'd not heard spoken of before about like opening, you know, you said the throat, the heart, and the throat thing. I just want to say that was really helpful for me, because softening here is a big thing for me. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And that's, you know, that's why it could be helpful to have a teacher on the path. Is, you know, oftentimes a teacher can point out some of the things that we don't see. And, you know, it's a funny thing that a lot of people, they can become proficient at letting go in the heart or letting go in the belly. But if they don't trust that it's okay to also let go in the throat, they start to let go, and then it gets kind of stuck in the throat, or we let go a little bit. And then I'm going to say something gross. I say this a lot, but we become like a puppy who eats grass or eats something that shouldn't. It eats it, something nasty. It starts to let go of it. It vomits it up, and then it eats it again. And so then we get in that cycle where we're letting go, but then picking it up again. And so when all the chakras are open and there's a full trust, we let go, and then things start to truly fall away. The other thing is sometimes we start to let go and it just gets stuck here in the throat. And things tend to get bottlenecked there. Now's a common thing if you think you're not allowed to speak or shouldn't speak up, or, you know, anything, whether it's cultural, whether it's in the family. You know, it's a real common thing. It certainly was for me. So, and I spoke a little bit about that before. Sometimes you have to give yourself permission to be angry and kind of let that throat chakra open in an unskillful spiritual way and be like, just to kind of blast it open. And you probably make a fool out of yourself and make a big mess in life. But what you'll find is, even after you make a big mess, and then you realize that nobody died and nobody melted, and that we're all fine, even if we said the wrong thing and humiliated ourselves or hurt someone's feelings. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay to be human. It's okay to make a mistake. It's okay not to do it perfectly. And then see, when we really let go in this way, then things really start emptying out of us. And then the liberation goes very quickly and swiftly. So anyways, thanks for being a good sport. And it's been great having you here.
It was meant to hear this today. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Bless you.
Thank you. And then Susan, can you remind me of the time? Am I supposed to be done, or is there a couple more minutes?
There are 8 minutes left.
Okay. All right, let's see if we can stay on schedule here. Does anyone else have a quick succinct question? If you do, raise your hand and look in the comments here. Let's see.
Mike has a question. I see his physical hand raised.
Yep,
Okay.
I do.
Yeah.
Hi
Yeah.
there.
Hi, Mike.
Hi there.
Mike.
Yeah, I got a question. In the mornings, once or twice this recently, I've woken up and I've had there's been a space there. There's been nothing there, total stillness. And then I'm kind of looking at it, and then whoomp, something whoops into the pit of the stomach, and the stillness is all gone. Now I have had.
What is the something that comes in there and the stillness is gone?
It's definitely fear, no question about it. And I've tried to get. I've had a lot of practice at this, and I've tried to follow it down and get there and see what it is, but it just resists. It will not let me look at it. It will not allow me to actually see what it is. Interesting.
Yes. Yes. And so do you ever communicate with it? Do you ask it in a humble way, a sweet way, like, hey, what's that about? Like, what's going on there? What do you want and what do you need?
I could try that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's do this. Let's do this, everyone, before we end today. And Mike, you can play along. We can all play along. So I'm going to invite you all to close your eyes. And just feel into your body. We've spoken about a lot of things today. There's fear, there's critic, the inner lawyer, the inner judge, the inner prostitute. Is feeling into any aspect of self that feels divided or hurting or suffering. And I'm going to invite you just to invite that energy forward, to bring it forward, to invoke it. If there's any resistance, maybe even just real impersonal resistance, any heartache, any sorrow, jealousy, anger, inviting it forward. And then just in almost like playing with imagery and visualization, I'm going to invite you to feel into that energy, feel its emotion. Is it hot? Is it cold? Is it intense? Is it kind of shape-shifting? Is it big? Is it small? Is it in the belly? Is it in the forehead? Is it in the throat? The heart? Where's this at? And in a gentle way, I'm going to invite you to put a face on it. To see it as a being with arms and legs and a face. You can see that it's suffering and whatever emotion it is. So if it's fear, you just see it suffering with fear. If it's anger, it's suffering with anger. And the most loving way, you can just ask it on a surface level, like, hey, what do you want? What do you want? So it might say, I want you to stop. I want you to be free. I want you to do it right. I want this. I want that, whatever it is. It's going to tell you its egoic want. I want this to be over. And if you take a deep breath, and if you ask it again, what do you really need? What do you really need? How can I help you? How can I support you? And just feeling what comes forward. And often you'll see it wants love, it wants to be embraced, it wants to be included, it wants to be held, it needs a hug, it needs support. So from the depth, from the innocence, from the big-heartedness of Buddha nature, can you meet what's here with love? With love. Not judging, not attacking, not forcing, not denying. But gently breathing love deep into the heart of what's here. Deep into the heart of this pain. I invite you to take a deep breath. Call upon the grace of God to come into this room to flood all beings here. May everyone here be blessed, be flooded with light, be filled with strength, immense compassion and freedom. May this love without end shine throughout the entirety of the world. And so nice to be with each and every one of you. Thank you for sharing your hearts with me. Thanks for having a lot of faith and trust and showing up. A lot of new faces today. It's so nice to be with you in this arena. I look forward to seeing you again sometime. I'm teaching satsang tonight. If any of you want to join, there's details on my website. I have lots of weekly groups and all kinds of stuff going on. So love to meet with you again. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Craig. That was
Yes.
a wonderful session. Thank you. Thank you to everybody for your questions and your participation. I'll just put us to gallery view so we can all see each other and say goodbye. I've dropped Craig's speaker page information in the chat so you can find his contact details. A couple of people were asking how they book a session with you, Craig, so I'm sure they'll find that on your website. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much, everybody. The next event up is the Meetup Cafe with Bill Free and Lisa Natoli, starting in 15 minutes. So we'll see you over there. Thank you.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Craig.